Hello, everyone. In this lesson, we are working on a TOEFL writing task called Write for an Academic Discussion. Before we move on to the question, this short introduction will help you understand what is expected and how to approach the task. You will practice writing clearly, politely, and effectively in a real-life situation, which will prepare you for the writing section. If you are finding these TOEFL tips helpful, make sure to subscribe to my TOEFL and join our community of learners to keep your skills sharp and your confidence high. We are here to support your journey to a high score, so let's keep practicing together. A professor has posted a question about a topic, and students have responded with their thoughts and ideas. Make a contribution to the discussion. This instruction is the heart of the task. It tells us that we are entering an ongoing academic conversation. Our job is to read what the professor and other students have said, and then add our own unique perspective. Think of it as joining a seminar where you need to show you can understand others while presenting your own clear argument. You will have 10 minutes to write. 10 minutes is the total time you have for this task. This includes reading the prompt and the other students' posts, planning your ideas, and typing your response. Because the clock is ticking, we need to be focused and get straight to our main points. Your professor is teaching a class on public health. We are setting the stage in a public health class. This context is vital because your writing should sound like a student in a university setting. Understanding that we are discussing public health helps us choose the right vocabulary, like wellness, prevention, and community well-being. Write a post responding to the professor's question. In your response, you should do the following. This is your call to action. It confirms that your primary goal is to provide a direct answer to the question asked by the professor. You are not just writing a summary, you are writing a response that contributes value to the class discussion. Express and support your opinion. This tells us two things. You must take a side, and you must explain why. Simply saying you agree isn't enough. You need to provide logical reasons or examples to back up your stance. This is how you show the examiners your ability to develop an academic argument. Make a contribution to the discussion in your own words. Originality is key here. While you should refer to the ideas mentioned by the professor or other students, you must use your own phrasing. Avoid copying sentences directly from the prompt. Using your own vocabulary shows the graders that you have a high level of English proficiency. An effective response will contain at least 100 words. While there is no upper limit, aiming for at least 100 words ensures you have enough space to fully develop your ideas. A shorter response might seem underdeveloped, so try to provide enough detail to reach this goal within your 10 minutes. Professor, let's discuss public health strategies. The professor starts by introducing the general theme. The phrase public health strategies is our main umbrella topic. In the exam, always look for this opening to understand the broad field you are working in. One popular proposal for combating unhealthy eating habits is to place a special tax on sugary drinks and junk food, with the goal of discouraging consumption. Here, the professor introduces a popular proposal. Notice the word combating, which implies a serious effort to solve a problem. The core idea is a special tax used for discouraging consumption. This is the first strategy we need to consider. Critics, however, argue that such taxes unfairly penalize lower-income individuals, and that education is a better approach. The professor presents the other side, using the word critics. They suggest that taxes might unfairly penalize certain people. Instead, they propose education as a more effective alternative. This gives us two clear options to choose from. Which strategy do you think is more effective for promoting public health? Imposing taxes on unhealthy foods, or focusing on public education campaigns? This is the specific question you must answer. It sets up a choice between imposing taxes and public education campaigns. To get a high score, your response must address this comparison directly. Why? This tiny word, why, is the most important part of the prompt. It reminds us that our reasoning is what the graders are looking for. Your logic and supporting details are what make your answer academic. Student 1. I support the idea of taxing unhealthy foods. Student 1 makes their position clear immediately. Using I support is a simple and effective way to begin a response. This establishes their stance right at the start. While education is important, financial incentives are often a more powerful motivator for changing behavior on a large scale. This student uses a while clause to acknowledge the other side before presenting their own argument. They argue that financial incentives are more effective for changing behavior on a large scale. This is a very strong academic structure. A tax makes people think twice before buying something unhealthy, and as a result, the revenue generated can be used to fund health programs. Student 1 provides a specific benefit, revenue generated. They explain that this money can be used to fund health programs, which adds a second layer of support to their argument. Student 2. I think education campaigns are a more effective and fair approach. Student 2 takes the opposite view. They use the words effective and fair to describe education. This tells us their argument will be based on both results and social justice. Taxes can place a significant burden on families with limited budgets, who may rely on cheaper food options. This student focuses on the significant burden on families with limited budgets. This is a point of contrast that you can refer to in your own response to show you are listening to the discussion. In contrast, educating people about nutrition empowers them to make better choices for themselves in the long run, without creating a financial penalty. The phrase, "in contrast," is a great transition. The student argues that education empowers people for the long run, avoiding what they call a financial penalty. Now, let's write our own response. Our first step is to pick a side and state it clearly. We want to show the professor that we have considered both education and taxation, but we believe one is superior. Let's start with a strong academic opening sentence. In my opinion, while public education is a commendable long-term goal, implementing taxes on unhealthy products is a more immediate and effective solution to the growing obesity crisis. We begin with, "in my opinion," because it immediately signals our stance to the professor, which is great for task fulfillment. Then, we write, "while public education is a commendable long-term goal," to show we've read student 2's point and understand its value. Next, we use "implementing taxes on unhealthy products is a more immediate and effective solution" to present our main argument clearly and firmly. Finally, we finish the sentence with "to the growing obesity crisis" to give our argument a specific, real-world context, which strengthens our logical development. While student 2 argues that taxes unfairly penalize low-income families, I believe the long-term healthcare costs associated with diet-related illnesses present a far greater financial burden on these vulnerable populations. To interact with our classmates, we start with, "while student 2 argues that taxes unfairly penalize low-income families," which directly addresses a counterpoint from the discussion. Then we pivot by writing, "I believe the long-term healthcare costs," to introduce a deeper financial perspective. We add detail with "associated with diet-related illnesses" to be precise about the health issue. Finally, we conclude that these costs present a far greater financial burden on these vulnerable populations. This is a sophisticated way to flip the opponent's argument and use it to support your own position. By increasing the price of sugary drinks, governments create a tangible barrier that discourages consumption among the youth, who are particularly price-sensitive. Now we add a specific reason. We start with, "by increasing the price of sugary drinks," showing the direct action of a tax. We then explain the result by writing, "governments create a tangible barrier that discourages consumption." To make our argument even stronger, we specify a group, among the youth, and give a reason why it works, who are particularly price-sensitive. This level of detail shows the examiner that you can think critically about economics and health behavior. Furthermore, as student 1 mentioned, the revenue generated from such taxes can be reinvested into subsidizing fresh produce or funding physical activity programs in schools. We use the transition "furthermore" to add a second point, and then we say, "as student 1 mentioned," to show we are paying attention to the whole discussion. We then quote the idea of the revenue generated from such taxes and expand it by suggesting it can be reinvested into subsidizing fresh produce. We finish by adding, or funding physical activity programs in schools. This shows you can build upon someone else's idea and provide your own specific examples. This dual approach not only reduces the intake of harmful substances, but also actively promotes healthier lifestyles. Here we use a great grammatical structure. We start with this dual approach to summarize our two main points. Then we use the correlative conjunction, not only reduces the intake of harmful substances, but also actively promotes healthier lifestyles. This not only but also structure is a fantastic way to show off your grammar skills and improve your score for language use. Ultimately, a tax provides the necessary fiscal pressure to shift societal habits more rapidly than educational campaigns alone, which often fail to compete with aggressive corporate marketing. We start our conclusion with, ultimately, to wrap up our thoughts. We state that a tax provides the necessary fiscal pressure to achieve a specific goal, to shift societal habits more rapidly than educational campaigns alone. To finish with a punch, we add, which often fail to compete with aggressive corporate marketing. This final clause explains why the other side's proposal might fail, making our own argument look even more realistic and convincing.